Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of Down That Aisle. Now, this is an interesting one, I think. I'm going to dive right into it. I think that this is an interesting one because, it definitely geared towards a specific character. And you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there. Hercules Hernandez. When WWF when he entered WWF, he first came in, kind of had the Bruiser Brody look. I mean, he had the long hair, he had like this barbarian type garb on, and then at some point he started being managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan, cut the hair, became he was Hercules Hernandez. They kind of dropped the Hernandez and just went with Hercules. He came out, he would just wear just a simple black tights. Came out with the chain, and the guy was impressive looking. The only thing about Hercules, I'll always say, he always was, for me, I always was like, man, he's so white. Like, he's so pale. The guy never tanned. And I think if he tanned, I almost can't even imagine what he would look like with a tan. But he was always like, just so pale, almost like Sheamus, And, but the guy's body was so impressive. He was a guy that, even when he was a heel, I wasn't a guy who was super into the heels. But like how I said in episode 1 with Terry Funk, Hercules was a guy that even when he was a heel, I liked him. His intensity. Not the best in-ring worker, but his style fit his character. I think that people lose sight of things like that. Like, someone might say, like, okay, Ultimate Warrior, he was horrible in the ring, but what did you want from him? Did you want him to go out and be doing, all kinds of technical moves? No, that's not what the character is designed for. And Hercules, he's not designed to go out and do all kinds of technical moves. Him going out there and his finisher move with the backbreaker. I remember a famous picture, him having Hogan. I think it was the third Saturday Night's Main Event. I'm not sure if it's the third, but I know he wrestled Hogan at a Saturday Night's Main Event. And it was one of my favorite matches. I almost wanted Hercules to win. I think I remember him from that Battle Royal that was right before WrestleMania 3, and he was throwing those knees into. His intensity was super. I mean, he had that awesome feud with Billy Jack Haynes. Then he moved on to the one with the Ultimate Warrior, and then it all changed when Bobby Heenan. It was kind of a controversial angle. Bobby Heenan sold Hercules to Ted Dibiase, almost like a slave, like a human. And I remember that being really controversial, like, a takeoff of selling a slave. So he sold Hercules to Ted DiBiase, and that's when Hercules made the face turn. And then that's when he got this theme. And he was super over at first. And then, the theme fit his character, because he was always cutting promos as if he really was Hercules. The god Hercules, not just Hercules Hernandez. It wasn't a nickname. He was actually Hercules, the god. And where the downfall comes in, I think, is he switched his gear from the black tights to baby blue. And I get it. He wasn't a heel anymore. He was a face. But I think that in history, baby blue is like a sign of death for a guy. Once a guy hits baby blue, they're pretty much enhancement guys at that point. He started putting guys over. You would see him putting over like Earthquake, and then he ended up, after that face run for a while with that awesome theme, he ended up switching back to heel and joining up with Paul Roma in a very, very underrated tag team, Power and Glory. Switched back to the black tights, and they were awesome. But I think at the time, you had so many teams. You had Demolition at the time. The Legion of Doom was coming in, and those two were the two on top at the time. You had the Hart Foundation, the Nasty Boys. I think it was just hard to get to that top spot, especially for someone like a Roma who probably wasn't a favorite from The Office. And their finishing move was awesome, the superplex into the splash off the top. And then, he went on to WCW, he stuck around for a while, went on to WCW. He was the Super Ninja, I think he was, and it was so stupid. He had put on a lot of weight, too, in the stomach area, but not like fat. He just was big and bulky. But, he had a tag team with Scott Norton that was like, oh man, if they weren't in America, but had they been a tag team in America, like, this would have been a team that, had they brought him back over to WCW, they could have easily ran that tag team division for quite a while. I could see them being on top. Give them a good manager. Probably at that time they would have probably had I think Harley Race would have been good, but you give him like the Invader or the Assassin. I said the Invader, the Assassin, or Colonel Robert Parker. Even give him one of those guys, and these two guys could have been on top for quite a while. So, yeah, Hercules Hernandez, a guy I don't think gets the credit he deserves in the wrestling business. Always a great body. I thought was decent in the ring for what he was, and he wasn't a bad talker. He was doing those, again, he was doing the promos as Hercules. So, Hercules, as they say in The Sopranos, Hercules. But yeah, Hercules Hernandez, I think when you heard that theme back in the day, you kind of got excited because you knew Hercules was coming out. He was coming out with that big chain. I can remember him always coming out with the big chain, carrying it over his shoulders, around his neck, pointing his finger while he was talking about the guy in the ring. So yeah, Hercules Hernandez, a guy I just wanted to show some love to, and a team I wanted to show some love to. Also, I wanted to touch up on two hilarious stories about Hercules. So both of them are from Jim Cornette. One was they were doing a show, and a fan had jumped over the rails and tried to get at Herc, but he was trying to punch Cornette too. And anyway, I think he had gotten his hands on somebody. But in the end, after the show, they had, or after the match, the cops had taken the fan to the back. And so when the fan was just standing there, and I guess Hercules open hand slapped the guy, and the guy flew back like 5 feet. And Cornette was like, "Oh man, you could have just punched the guy." And he's like, "Oh no, that would have hurt him." So, there was that, and then there was they said Cornette said he was driving down the road. He was probably with the Midnights, and they could see this car, and it had its indoor light on, and they could see like there was something weird on the side of the car, and they were passing it, and they realized that it was Hercules in the car with his wife, and he's driving, but the driver's side door was bent completely forward, and it wouldn't close. And so when they pulled over to talk, they said, what happened? He said he got out to take a piss, and a truck hit the door and just knocked, bent it out forward. He couldn't close it. So here this guy is just driving down the highway with the door. Oh man, you can only do that stuff in the 80s, man. You couldn't do that stuff nowadays. All right, so so come back next week. We'll have a new subject, and curious again. I'm curious to see what people thought about this. Write in, tell me what you think about Hercules' theme. Tell me what about my theory about guys that switch to baby blue, and that's the nail in the coffin for him. It's hard to think of some guys in baby blue that, maybe AJ Styles is the only guy. But all right. Thank you.